In this video, I'll teach you 3 movement exercises that have helped me heal and bulletproof my wrist. Whether you do calisthenics, jiu-jitsu, or even just working in front of a computer a lot, this joint is kind of important. So these exercises will hopefully help you move pain-free and avoid injuries. What's up? Nakhshon here. I've been doing movement training for the last 6 years, and a lot of the exercises we use in movement training place weight on our wrist, be it doing handstands, working on locomotion sequences, or doing dips on rigs. Now, the wrist is relatively small and sensitive in regards to how much load we place on it and how much we use it. So if you won't take care of it and strengthen it, training and even working on the computer can cause a lot of pain. I personally had 2 wrist injuries over the years, one during a bicycle accident and the second one happened on my first day of snowboarding. The exercises I'll teach you today have personally helped me recover from these injuries and avoid any wrist pain. Before we jump into the exercises, don't forget to subscribe and like this video. That is, if you want to become a better mover. Anyway, let's get into it. The first exercise is the wrist flexions. This exercise is going to do 80% of the bulletproofing work for most people. It's very basic and easy to do and has a ton of value in it, since most of our usage in the wrist is in placing weight on it in the extension position. So developing strength towards the other direction will help us avoid injuries by stopping our wrist from going too far into the end range of the motion. For this exercise, we want to get into a 6 stance position, place our shoulders above our wrist in a direct line, and raise ourselves up from the knuckles. We go up for 1 second and go down for 3 seconds. There are a few details you want to pay attention to. 1. Rotate your elbows outwards. You want the weight to be transferred to the wrist and not stopped at the elbow because you bent it. 2. When you go up, make sure your shoulders aren't pulled towards your body. Keep them above the wrist at all times. 3. Raise your thumb when doing the exercise. The distance between your hands and your knees determines the difficulty of this exercise. The farther away they are from each other, the harder it is. Do 3 to 5 sets of 15 repetitions. Remember, we always prefer quality over quantity. So if you've advanced too far and can't perform this exercise well with all of its details, go back to an easier variation. The second exercise is the wrist extensions. Get into the same position as the last exercise, into the 6 stance position. Only that now we place the back of our palms on the ground and lift ourselves up from the tip of our fingers and not from our knuckles. Make sure you lock your elbows and try to keep your shoulders above your wrist. Unlike the wrist flexion exercise, it's much harder to do that. So don't worry if your shoulders go a bit backwards when going up. Do 3 to 5 sets of 15 repetitions. If you find it hard, you can get closer to your knees. The third exercise is the one that helped me recover from my snowboarding injury the most, and it's called wrist rotations. It has a tricky name because it's common knowledge that the rotation comes from the forearm and not the wrist. I'll explain why we call it like that and why we do this exercise after I'll show you how to do it. Stand straight with your elbow touching your body and your forearm reaching forward. Take a broomstick with some weight on its edge. It can be actual weights, a resistant band twirling around, or just the broom itself, and grab it around the middle of the stick. Grab it in a supinated position, meaning with the face of your palm facing upwards. Let the weight of the edge of the stick rotate your arm and wrist externally, and then rotate it back. Do the same with a pronated grip and switch the sides of the stick so that it will rotate you internally and not externally like the last variation, and rotate it back up. Now, there are 2 reasons we use this exercise. One is that the wrist does rotate when the forearm is completely rotated just a tiny bit, and activating your muscles to get back from this position helps us bring blood into the area and strengthen your muscles, which helps rehabbing and bulletproofing the joint. That's also why we call this exercise wrist rotations. The second reason is that it kind of deforms your hand and makes you go through some combinations of ulnar and radial flexion with the wrist extension and flexion. Basically, you actively go through a lot of end range motions, which is helpful for joint bulletproofing. If you find this variation easy, try to grab the stick farther away from its heavier side. It will make the exercise harder. Do 3 to 5 sets of 10 rotations per side for each arm. That's it. These are the 3 exercises you want to play with. I usually use the wrist flexion and extension exercises before any training session where I place some weight on my wrist, and I use the wrist rotations exercise every now and then for general bulletproofing purposes or when I need to rehab my wrist. If you're interested in becoming a better mover and want to learn more about movement training, you're welcome to subscribe and like this video. I also have a few other videos about other joints you can bulletproof, so check them out if you want to. Anyway, have a good day and peace.